Thanks for doing the Tuesday Takeover, and it's good to be here as your wingman.
Well, I'm very excited for it. So I did prepare some slides, although my slides seem to hang up a lot. So who knows if you can actually see them? But see, I did put Dave on as my special guest. Whoops, I just hit the wrong button, but that's okay.
Yeah. We were seeing your slides, and now they're gone.
All right, that's good. I got rid of them. Okay, so I guess I'll sort of walk you guys through a couple of things. So Dave and I want to make this really a great kickoff to your year, right? What can we do to make today's call really actionable? Dave was telling me that he did lots of studying over the holiday, right? It was a great time to pull back, relax, spend time with family. Dave used it for knowledge acquisition. And he said that he watched a video on adjust your behaviors or adjust your goals. I thought, ouch, like that's pretty stinging, right? Who was it that did that? I forgot.
It was Ryan Hill and RC from the RE Source. And I did share that in our Facebook group. So there is a link to that 4-minute video from Ryan Hill. So they crushed it.
So, I mean, I think it's really key. So, kind of as we get going, Dave and I were talking about right before the call picked up, you've got a choice, right? I love the fact that there's about 200 of you here. You guys are ready to rock and roll in 2018. And our goal is to actually get you guys to go to action, right? I mean, it's truly the first business day of the year, and you've got a choice. You've got a choice to take your time and use it for good, right? You're here. So first off, congratulations for that. And then second is then you have to make it actionable. So our goal is to sort of take this theme into 2018 of how do we increase our business. So I kind of want to shine a light on a couple of things. I'll throw my PowerPoint back up here for a sec and just show a couple of slides. So one is, I think most of you know that Dave and I run a productivity mastermind every Friday. So it's 9 a.m. Pacific time. If you haven't been on there, that's a great call. We're really tactical. We've got Josh Metal coming on next week from this Friday as our guest. And so we're going to continue to bring on
this Friday.
Oh, this Friday. This Friday.
Yeah,
so
this Friday,
that's going to be an awesome
Friday,
call.
Josh is coming.
Okay. So, again, great opportunity to catch up with someone and hear his thoughts on, where we're heading in 2018. And I don't know what Josh's final number was, but, it's over north of 800 units for the year that he closed. So there's definitely going to be some great information to learn. We also have the Mastermind Productivity Facebook group that Dave already mentioned. I also do want to show that the YouTube channel, is all my favorite resource. And Dave just did a channel in there, a playlist in there, which is on the top videos from last year. And we'll talk a little bit about those kind of as we go through the day. But ultimately, we want to kind of run you guys through. We're going to talk through the top 2 strategies for Q1 of 2018. And we got a poll that Dave's going to push kind of as we get started here. So let's take a minute and get you guys all voting and kind of see who we've got on this call.
All right. So guys, what I'm going to do is we want to know what your goals are. That whole concept of change your dreams / goals or change your behavior. We at least want to know, what you did last year. How many loans did you close last year? So please answer this quickly. The faster we can get to 70% of you voting, the faster we can get into the content. So did you close less than 50 loans in 2017? Did you close 50 to 100, 100 to 200, 200 to 300? And is anyone on the call? Did anyone close over 300? So far we don't have anyone who's closed over 300, but we do have a few of you that have done 2 to 3. A lot of you, almost 15% have done 100 and 200. A little over half, or less than 50. So again, everybody push. We're not judging you. We're not going to share this in public, but do vote. So we're almost over 70%. There we go. We got over 70%. So first of all, thank you. Todd and I are here to serve. I actually got an email. I'm not going to mention who it was, but the CEO of a very successful mortgage company. He actually happens to be one of the top 50 loan officers in the country himself. That doesn't leave, like, who is that person? And he's like, hey, how many people did you have on your call today? And he didn't realize we hadn't had the call yet. But I responded back to him and saying, oh, we're going to have over 100. He didn't think we would. He was like, really? And I told him that even if we were going to have less than 20, that I still would keep this call alive because it's my commitment to serve this community. I believe that the most successful loan officers are the best teachers. I believe that the most successful loan officers use their technology wisely, and we're here to make change. So part of that, in order for Todd and I to achieve it, is to know what your goals are. So thank you for that. One last thing, and I'll hand it back to you, Todd. In the Mortgage Coach Facebook group, we posted a poll saying, how many families do you want to serve in 2018? And we gave you the same options, less than 50, 50 to 100, 100 to 200, et cetera. Please go in there during the call, after the call, and let us know what you want to do. That way, when we're leading you, whether it's a Tuesday call, the Friday call, everything else, we can be on point. You know, we can speak to you based off of where you've been and where you want to go. So back to you, Todd.
All right, so a couple things. So we're north of 200 people now. That's awesome. So glad to have so many of you here. You know, Dave wouldn't let me vote, but my team did close over 500 loans again this year. So I am proud of them because it's the first year that I wasn't a producer. I produced 0 this year, and the previous year that we did that, the previous 2 years that we closed over 500 units, I was the number one producer on the team. And so, so I'm going to share strategies with you that my clients use, that my team uses, that I've used, that I think will hopefully be helpful. And so, you know, as I said, we're going to pick the top 2 strategies. Now, the challenge is that the top 2 strategies aren't new strategies. The top 2 strategies are strategies that have been around forever. And my question is, if you are doing less than 50 loans and you want to get over 50 loans, what is it different that you need to do this year? So it's not going to seem like rocket science, but let me walk you through the process of realtor acquisition. And so hopefully you guys are now seeing my PowerPoint on the screen. And so I'm really going to walk you through both warm and cold strategies, right? What is it that you need to do in order to acquire realtors? Now, I know this works because I've got clients who are less experienced than you that are willing to take the time and the energy to do these strategies. And I just figured we would bring them up. Dave had interviewed Wally Elberry last week talking about his annual mortgage review strategy, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes. But ultimately, Dave decided, and I agreed with him when he said it, that realtor acquisition is going to be the number one way to grow your business. Now, I'm not going to walk you through determining how many realtors you need. There's other videos that I've recorded in here where I talk about conversion rates and tracking and how to figure out, you know, what to do. But the pretty simple math is this. If you did 25 loans last year and you want to do 50 this year, and you had 4 realtors last year, then you're going to need 8 realtors probably this year, right? So let's just assume that we've got to add a significant number of realtors. And so we're going to go after both warm and cold realtors. And so just kind of walk through, grab a pen if you don't have one, and just kind of think through these ideas. So you're going to write them down, and then we're going to make it actionable by spending time after this call today, before you get in your email and Facebook, and we're going to make this actionable by actually doing these things, right? You with me? So first off, we're going to build our warm list. And the warm list is the easiest list to build. I've talked about it before. The last time that I really spent a ton of my time going after realtors, I was in a competition with the guy at the time who was the number one producer in Maricopa County here in Phoenix, the Phoenix market where I am. And I was a little bit, I guess, underpowered compared to him. He was the number one guy. He did triple the volume that I did, but we were going head to head in this weekly competition to call and connect with realtors. And we set it up where we couldn't only go after warm people, we had to go after cold people too. But I can tell you that if you go after your warm people first, in the days where we had weeks where we had to connect with 20 people on appointments, and I could tell you that if I could connect with 10 warm people, I typically got 8 or 9 appointments. So let's talk about what is someone who's warm. It's someone who's going to know your name when you call him or her. Easiest place is your recent transactions, right? You close deals, right? Again, 84% of you closed up to 100 deals this year. There was a realtor on the other side of the transaction that knows your name. And I'm going to make the assumption that you crushed it. You closed their deal well. Hopefully you communicated with them through the process. But even if you didn't, that's somebody warm who knows you. And that's got to be someone that you put on your list. All right. So that's group number one. Group number 2 is who knows the people who I want to know, right? That's the friends of a friend list. And so at the same time, because I was trying to stack the deck as I was competing against this other producer, I went through and I called friends of mine, my current realtors, and said, who do you know, right? Who are the other realtors that you know that I should know? And I didn't tell them, hey, I'm trying to add 15 new realtors on. I just said, hey, I'm just trying to get another partner or 2 for this coming year. Who do you know who you think would be a good fit? And your partners and your friends are going to be happy to do that. I'd also be looking through, who is it that's at my kid's school? Who is it that's, that I've met out socially, right? I mean, I teamed up with a guy who was really experienced in real estate, had lenders, didn't need me, but I said, gosh, wouldn't it be fun to do something together where we target the parents at our kid's school? And so we did that, and he ended up becoming a partner. So think through who else is that and make that list. And then you're going to look at faces from the past. And this one's always really hard and oftentimes really painful. And so what I mean by that is, who is it that you did business with before that for whatever reason you lost touch with? They fired you, you forgot about them, or you just kind of grew apart. Because ultimately those people will actually be happy to hear from you, and you should put them on your list. And then lastly, you're going to pick up the phone and call these people, right? You don't need any fancy approach. You don't need to send them a gift or do anything like that. You just need to call them. And so oftentimes people are like, I'm scared, I don't have the time. So, number one is you always have to get your calendar out, right? So if you look at my calendar for the week, as most of you know, I do that weekly, right? I've actually got boxes on here that are for my on time, right? So I've got 90 minutes for today and tomorrow and Thursday, and I've got 45 minutes on Friday scheduled for on time. So you've got to get it on your calendar when I'm going to do it.
Todd,
yes, sir.
Todd, real quick, show us, you were thumbing through something. Hold it up on the camera. I want people to see just what it looks like for someone like you who keeps a calendar and marks things up. That's, by the way, everybody, that's what success looks like. That's what planning looks like. In Win by Minland.
Well, and so that's just really, it's my coaching calls on there. And then when I've created time with other people, and then there's white space in there too, where I don't actually have stuff calendared out, but it is really important that you've got this kind of time, planned out, because ultimately when I have someone on the phone and they say, oh, that's great, I'll do it, they always know my next question. By when, right? When are you going to do it? If you haven't actually put it in your calendar that I've got time to do it. Now, it's a little different for me now that I'm coaching, because I've got my coaching schedule, and that's predetermined literally for the next 12 months. So I'm planning around that in everything that I do. I'll tell you, I'm much more productive in the morning. I did an hour of on time this morning after I did my morning routine. And I would encourage you, before you get distracted by everything else, that's really when you need to focus on these strategies. And so, again, it's not rocket science, where we're at. So we're going after our warm realtors. These are people who already know who we are. We've either worked with them in the past, they were referred by somebody else, they were part of a transaction. And there's different ways you can approach the conversation with them, but ultimately you're going to pick up the phone and you're going to call them. Now, the thing I'll tell you first and foremost is you've got to be ready for their objections. And what I find is that realtors have a minimum of 3 objections they're going to throw at you before they potentially are going to say yes. Now, keep in mind that I know you've done this before. The question is how recently have you done it? Did you do it by accident, or were you really proactive? I mean, this is going to be block time where we're going to go after a lot of people. And when I did this competition, I'll say a couple of things. Number one is I had money on the line at a time where I really couldn't afford it. So I had to write a check that the person who was running the competition held. So me and the other guy both wrote checks for $500. So it was a significant amount of money. And my check was written to the other guy. The other guy's check was written to me. So if we didn't hit our commitment by the end of the day on Friday, we got to cash the other person's check. So number one is I wasn't going to lose money, and I was going to be held accountable. So I had to know who was it I was going to call, because if I didn't have a lot of people, I had to connect with 20 people in a week to make sure that I got appointments, and they could be 10 warm and 10 cold. And so especially the cold people, I mean, I had to call a lot of those people in order to get someone on the phone, and I had to be ready for those objections. So let's sort of walk through what the objections are, and then we can kind of walk through what a couple scripts are. I think most of you can guess what the objections are. Objection number one.
Hey, Todd. Todd, real quick.
Yes, sir.
Hey, I want you to go through them, but I also want everybody to actively participate and share what your objections are. And here's the question: what are the most common objections you get from realtors when trying to schedule a realtor meeting? So please share your objections as Todd's going through this. Want to make sure we capture all those. I'm also going to post that in our Facebook group. Anyways, keep it rocking, Todd.
All right. Hey, real quick, there's a couple of questions too. So I'd love to hear what you think the other objections are. Definitely can get a copy of the slides. I'll make sure that I send those over to Dave so that he's that he's got them. Deborah asked that I use a paper calendar. Yes, I do, but I also use Outlook, right? I live off my Outlook and my iCal. I mean, if it's on there, it gets done, but I actually like this because it's visual. I can see it every week, right? And then it translates to, my day, right? So here's my day going here. It's the same stuff, but just for today that's written on here. But I like the visual piece of it. If I'm on the phone, someone says, hey, can you do this? I just look at it. It's a lot faster than going into my online calendar. Plus, if I open my phone up, I may get distracted. So I think that is key. So I'm already seeing people here give me all these objections, which I love. So the first one is, yes, I already have a lender. In fact, oftentimes they're going to go, I've already got 3 lenders. And I'll tell you, I don't care who the lender is. I don't care how long they've worked with them. And I don't even care if it's their relative, because I can tell you that I've got a client who landed a really big fish this year in her market, whose lender was their brother. And so they just said, awesome, you know what? I just want to add value to you. And this person was a neighborhood specialist. And she got the person and said, well, I realize you already have a lender, but are you okay if I send you a lead? Because she happened to have a past client who she had done an annual mortgage review for, who was looking to move. And now that after that one transaction and wowing the realtor, now they're actually doing business together with a preferred lender relationship. So you've got to be ready for the objections. And so the response to I already have a lender is, of course you do, right? I mean, that's it. Like, you're not trying to belittle them, but you're just pointing out the fact, of course you've got another lender. I know you do, right? Great. You wouldn't be successful in business if you didn't. All I'm asking you is for the opportunity to get together face to face, to put a face to the name and learn a little bit more about you and your business. So that's kind of was my normal script. It's nothing, crazy rocket science. There's other scripts I hear people use like, hey, you're a top producer. I'm a top producer. I know we're going to cross paths. That's a little more for the cold person, but I really was just saying, hey, I'd just love to catch back up, especially now that it's New Year's, right? You have such an opportunity to say, hey, just wanted to catch up in the new year. Hear how your 2017 went and learn about your goals for 2018. We will spend a few minutes talking about how that meeting should go when we get sort of the end of the cold part. But number one objection, yes, I already have a lender. Number 2 is that I am busy, right? Oh, I'm just so busy right now. And I say, gosh, awesome. You know what? I'm so glad you are. I have no doubt that you are, but I really would love just the opportunity to get together. Again, I don't want to take a lot of time, and then I commit to a smaller time amount, right? I'm only asking them normally to a cup of coffee. The reason I choose coffee is because it's cheaper than lunch. It's a less time commitment than lunch. So if I get there and I realize this isn't going well, I can bail out a lot faster. But ultimately then I say, gosh, I'm just asking for a cup of coffee. I'm not asking to get married. I just want to catch up, hear how your year went, look and see what's going on in 2018. And again, just kind of get caught back up. And then, so I'm kind of making them feel a little bit guilty about it, right? Like, gosh, I know you're busy. And then I just throw out a couple of times, right? You're going to look at your calendar. You're going to have a couple of blocks in that calendar that are open for you to meet with people. And then you're going to actually put on there, awesome. Hey, you know what? I've got time on Thursday morning at 10, or I've got time on Friday at 1 o'clock. Would either of those work for you? And again, they're still going to push back and go, gosh, you know what? That sounds really great. I don't drink coffee. They're going to continue to push. They're going to continue to push back on that. They just can't do it right now, that they're too busy. That's really their key. And then that's where you just sort of have to decide, well, how far am I willing to take it? So then my last one always was, you know what, tell you what, I'm committed to buy you a cup of coffee. I know you work out of the office. What's your favorite coffee? And I'll meet you next week, or I'll meet you one day this morning. Let me know what time you get in, and I'll just meet you at the front door. And then they kind of feel like a little bit of a jerk. And then they're going to typically say yes, or if they say no, then we'll sort of talk about what that looks like. But I'm just flipping through what else you guys are saying here. I have to give out 3 cards, and again, we can certainly talk about scripts around that, but that's okay. Oh, I like that one. There's a little RESPA violation here that my good friend Matt put up there. So yeah, that is an interesting one. We are seeing some stuff, unique stuff going on within some of the real estate offices, but I don't probably want to go down that path. So let's just talk real quick about cold, right? Let's go into that one, because that's the other part of it. Now, I'll tell you, when for me, normally if I got 8 to 9 people off my warm list, I could get 2 to 4 people off of my cold list. And I'm going to tell you, on the cold list, we're going to go after them with an old school book campaign. Now, if you've never heard of it, great, then this is new school to you. But there's others of you who said, oh, yeah, I've heard of this, or I've done it before. But we're going to start off by giving them something. So yes, you can call them. I can tell you, when I did this competition, I had to call these people. So again, that's where I was using that script I mentioned earlier. Hey, it's Todd Bookspan, right? You're a top producer. I'm a top lender. I would love to get together. Well, that was a little bit of a fib. I wasn't quite a top lender at the time. I still was closing a lot of transactions, I guess, but not top in the market. And just love to get together so I could put a face to the name, learn a little bit more about you and your business. That was really hard, and I was still getting 2 to 4 people to be willing to meet with me. But if you do the old school book campaign, I first learned it from Todd Duncan, and I've heard other people kind of teach it since then. But ultimately, the old school book campaign is you writing a letter. Whoops, I got that duplicate in there, right? So we're going to send them a letter and a book. Now, the letter is just something personal, and the book is going to be sort of a book of your choice. So I would say the books that I'm seeing is your favorite book. So let me talk about a client of mine, Paul. I don't know if he's on the call. Wow, there's over 300 of you now. I don't know if Paul's on here. I won't even take the time to look. But ultimately, Paul is a kid. I can say that because I'm double his age. And he's newer in the business, only been in the business for a few years. And so we set up a plan a few months ago that he was going to do realtor acquisition. And I'll tell you, he started off kind of tiptoeing his feet in there. He was only sending out 2 books a week because he thought that's all he had time for. And then finally, I pushed him to up the number of books. So for him, he picked The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. Again, one of mine and Dave's favorites, especially those of you who are part of our Insane Productivity group. You got to pick a book that you like. The other 2 books that I'm seeing people use is Ninja Selling. It's just an awesome book, and not every realtor has it. I made the mistake once of sending out Millionaire Real Estate Agent by Gary Keller, which I think is a great, amazing book. But then my non-Keller Williams agents were kind of like, what are you trying to recruit me for Keller Williams? So instead I would go after a personal productivity book. I sent out Raving Fans before. I sent out Who Moved Your Cheese, right, with a letter. And so really in the letter, just going to be a letter, Dear Dave, right? And you're going to just say, hey, here's a book. Hope you enjoy it. Wish a happy new year. I'm going to call you, and then you're going to pick the date of when you're going to actually call the person. So you're going to schedule and you're going to commit to a time. Now, I tell you, I made a mistake. The first time I did it, I sent out 20 books at once, and I told them all I was going to call them on Tuesday morning. Well, FedEx the books to them. So I should say that. You want to deliver it in a way that you know that it's going to get there, right, to the front desk of their real estate office. If it goes FedEx, they're going to call them and say, hey, you've got a package. I also had access to home addresses through MLS data that someone had shared with me. So I tried to send some of them to their house, although then they thought that was a little bit creepy. So I would send it to their real estate office. I would send it to the front desk via FedEx. And so mine all got there on a Friday. I told them I was going to call them all on Tuesday. Now, let me tell you what went wrong with that. Number one is not everyone got their book because not everyone goes in the office. Number 2 is if they're called on Friday, who knew if they were going to get there by Tuesday? And then number 3, I already said that I had too many people on that list to call, and it was really difficult to get them all called that morning, but I did achieve that. So my suggestion would be you write the letter, something personal, why you like the book. Hey, I'm going to follow up with you. Again, you don't really need to tell them why or anything else. If you're referred to them by someone, that's great too, right? If you go back to my warm strategy of the ride along, like who do you know, who knows who I want to know, you can do that as well. Obviously, the 3rd book I put on here is Win by Noon. That's if you want to do business planning strategy, the Win by Noon Real Estate Edition. We've got a lot of lenders using that. Too soon for me to give statistics on how that one's working, but my guess is it's going to work great. And then you got to make that call. And what I find is that it kind of goes into a few categories. So one is that I don't know what's the right way to put it. A big portion of the people, I shouldn't say big, maybe 25% are actually to proactively reach out to you. And guess what they're going to say? You guessed it. They're going to say, thanks for the book, Todd. I already have a lender. And so again, when they call you, I would be plugging their phone numbers into your phone. So if they call you, you know who it is so that you can prioritize it. I was thinking about playing a call. So Paul, my client I mentioned, actually sent me a voicemail on Thursday or Friday from one of the agents who he sent the book to. And the voicemail essentially goes, oh my gosh, thank you so much for the gift, right? It's that whole reciprocity thing. They're going to want to do something back. And this guy basically said, I've been in the business for 15 years. I have lenders, plural. However, I'd still love to meet with you. And so they're getting together and meeting. I'd love to report on the future of how those meetings go. In fact, I'll probably do an interview with Paul within the next few weeks to get an idea. Just to give you an idea, Paul upped his books to 5 a week that he's sending out because he didn't want to overdo it, but he does have 10 realtor meetings scheduled for the first 2 weeks of the year. Excuse me, let me take a quick drink. I think Dave jinxed me, he said he's got a cough. So you've got to make that call, and you're going to have those same objections when you make the call. So again, you're going to be ready for their objections. And then you're going to end up with a couple of lists, right? I already said some people will pick up the phone and call you. You will get the people who send you like the Dear John letter, like, hey, Todd, thanks for the book, not interested. You'll have but the rest of them you're going to chase down. Half of them or more you're going to chase down, and you're going to call them. So if you tell them you're going to call them on Tuesday, then call them on Tuesday. If you send out a lot of books at once, I'd recommend start with 5. You could do up to 10, but then it's just going to be a little bit more of a challenge. And then when you send it out, again, you're just going to call at the time that you told them. Some people say, tell them I'm going to call you at 10 a.m. Excuse me. The challenge with that is you got to make sure you can really call them at 10 a.m. So you could do, hey, I'm going to call you at 10. So the next person 10:30. But then if you get off on it, so I would just, give them, I'll call you Tuesday morning, or hey, I'll call you between 10 and 11 Tuesday morning if you want to be more specific. But again, you're showing them that you've got good follow-up skills. And then you're going to really go through that same script. Hey, just was following up. Wanted to make sure you got the book. Yes or no? Awesome. You didn't get the book. Oh my gosh, it's at your office. But here's what I did while I have you on the phone. I'd love to get together, put a face and name, and learn a little bit more about you and your business. Where people get in trouble is they try to sell them over the phone on how they do business, or they allow the person to say, well, tell me what you want to talk about. You really want to try to avoid that. You just really want to say, hey, I just want to put a face and name, learn a little bit more about you and your business, and then go right. Awesome. Hey, do you have time on Thursday at 10 o'clock or on Friday at 1 o'clock to meet with them? And again, I told you when I did my cold calling, where I didn't send them a book, I got meetings with 2 to 4 out of 10 that I connected with. It took me 30 to 40 calls to get a hold of people. It's super annoying when you send someone a book and they don't answer the phone. When I did the 20 books that I sent out, I had 5 or 6 of them that I actually never even talked to on the phone. Can't tell you that I was the best at follow-up afterwards. So that's kind of the last piece that I want to talk about is you've got to have a follow-up schedule. What is that going to look like? So with Paul, he and I had to discuss it. He had people, like when he was sending out his 2 books, he'd send out the books and he couldn't get a hold of people. And then he would call them the next day. He'd call them a week later. And at some point we'd had to decide, well, what does that follow-up plan, look like? And so I think the key with it is you're going to follow up that day in the morning when you said you were going to call them. I would follow them again with them that day in the afternoon, right? If you don't catch them at 10, go ahead and call them at 1 or 2, but I'd call them at least 2 times that day. Kind of goes to that lead conversion piece that we talk about with the Chris Smith interview that Dave did last year. I think it's no different following up with a realtor than it is following up with a client. If you call people 6 times within a short period of time, you're over 90% likely to get a hold of them. At some point, they're going to pick up the phone. Of course, the iPhone does have that block this caller feature, so you never know, or maybe they're going to put that crazy lender Todd so that they ignore my call. But you've got to have your follow-up plan, and it's going to be a 3-pronged plan, right? Phone calls still the best way, because if I'm a realtor and I'm going to give you my lead, I want to see that how you're going to follow up. So you're going to follow up with these guys just the exact same way you would follow up with a lead. You're going to call them, you're going to call them again, and then after you call them the second time, you're going to text them and you're going to email them. Again, hey, it's Todd. Just want to make sure you got the book. Do you have time for a call? ? Or maybe even just make sure you got the book ? Right? Again, they should hopefully respond to that because you gave them a gift. The whole point of the book is the reciprocity thing. I would think through, there's a couple of other books maybe that are worth looking at. If you look in the Facebook group on the Mortgage Coach Mastermind Productivity Facebook group, there is a book thread in there. Tools of Titans, which is like this thick by Tim Ferriss, might be another good one because it's super obnoxious. It's so big. That would be one other one I just thought about kind of while we're talking. But ultimately, you got to keep following up. You got to add them to your emails. Whatever you do, if it's a monthly newsletter or whatever it is, you need to follow up that way just because you want them to see your face. But for me, I think you follow up straight for 2 weeks, like literally straight through. You're calling a minimum of every other day. And my reason for that is because for me, I believe that I followed up with all my leads that were given to me for 2 weeks before I threw it back at the agent. If I can't get a hold of the person in 2 weeks, then I'm, kind of leaving a strip line like, hey, hope you got the book by now. Never heard from you. If you obviously don't want to meet, that's okay. No worries. Just let me know that you got the book so I know how to proceed. And then hopefully they'll kind of take that and maybe try to reply. But along the way, I'm just telling them, hey, I'm not a stalker. Me, I'm kind of sarcastic, those of you who do, but hey, I'm not a stalker. Hey, this is how I follow up with my leads. Again, you're kind of continuing to sell them on what you've got going. And then really, just kind of a couple of other tips. And then Dave can look and see if there's any great questions that the audience has asked or that I want to do it. One is when you actually meet with them, it's Jeremy Forcier's questions from last year. I already mentioned at the start of the call that Dave queued up a playlist of the top calls from last year. Jeremy's 5 questions for realtors just crushed it. It's the best one. I'm not going to tell you how to run that meeting. I'm going to tell you to watch that 15-minute video. The second thing is don't leave that meeting without a next action from with that agent, right? Oftentimes what happens is if you leave that meeting where you don't say, hey, here's what I'm going to do next, then that was a great meeting, but it didn't turn into anything. And then you've got to follow up. Again, the other challenge you're going to run into is that you'll set the meetings because some people are too chicken to tell you no. They'll say, awesome, hey, Todd, I'll meet with you on Thursday, and then they won't actually show up. Hopefully they won't not show up. Hopefully they'll tell you ahead of time, like, hey, I can't be there today. So when I did when I was tracking my calls, I got 14 appointments or 13 appointments out of the 20, and I scheduled them all in a 2-day period, which was crazy. I was going one direction, the other direction, all over town. So number 1 is don't do that. Number 2 is schedule plenty of time so that you're on time for each appointment. Confirm the appointment the day before. Again, I would just confirm via text now. That wasn't how I did it. I called people, but again, it was a good opportunity to say, hey, looking forward to see you tomorrow if I got their voicemail. And then after that 2-month period of follow-up, I think you just have to decide what is my follow-up going to look like. I'd be still calling them once a month. I'd have them on my realtor call list. And then I would just be emailing them. And, worst case is at some point, you get tired of it because you've got all the realtors you need. But I think up until that point, you got to continue to call. Tim Brahim, who had one of the other top calls from last year, when I first heard Tim talk about it, he got his top realtor after a year and a half of calling every week. That's a serious commitment. I wasn't quite that committed to going after any one agent, but I absolutely had agents who I called every month just to check in, even when they didn't answer my calls. All right, Dave, what do you think?
God, I think a lot. So a couple things I want to point out for Todd is that, to do his strategy, make sure that when you're doing your calls, it's multi-channel. That means phone, email, text, and Facebook. So use multi-channels to communicate with folks. That's part of your strategy. Make sure that you're not tone deaf, that you're not coming across, it's a conversation. You're having a conversation with, on the email. Hey, I left you a message, really want to schedule some time. You can just respond to this email and let me know the best time for you. And then the text could be, hey, I left you a call and an email. This might be a better way for you to respond. So use multi-channels. Don't be tone deaf around the channels that you use. Also, I just pushed an interview I did last year with Chris Smith, the author of The Conversion Code, and it's titled How to Get a Prospect on a Phone Call and Into a Quality Conversation. Now that call was on how to get a borrower. We kind of took the approach that you're doing internet marketing, you've got cold leads, and now you're trying to get a borrower on the phone. But there's good takeaways for that, even when you're trying to get a strategic relationship on the phone. So that's one thought, Todd. And then the other thought I have is that a lot of these realtors are people that you've met before. And I think that when you want to get a meeting with someone, show me you know me. And so if you can remember a pain point that they have or a focus that they have, like if you know it's an agent that does a lot of open houses, I always believe that the first time you ask generically, like, hey, it's New Year, let's get together. Great. But if I've asked that and they're not responding, book, create reciprocity, hit them there. And by the way, if they're not responding, now go after results. Hey, I know you do a lot of open houses. I'd love to talk about some ideas on how to get more leads at those open houses. Or, hey, I know you work with a lot of first-time home buyers. I've got some ideas on how to create urgency and clarity with the first-time home buyers. Hey, I know you work with a lot of high-end buyers, and sometimes getting move-up buyers to take action is hard. Let's meet and talk about, I've got some ideas and strategies. So don't lead with that. Lead with generic ask, reciprocity ask, but then show me you know me. And I do hope everybody out there is that when you're meeting with agents, you're asking the Jeremy Forcier questions. After you have that meeting, I pray that you're taking 5 to 10 minutes and putting quality notes in your CRM. What are their goals? What are their pain points? So that now in Q2, when we're really getting ready to crush it for spring home buying season, you're keeping the conversation going. Again, multi-channel, text, email, Facebook, whatever is tailored to that client. One last thing I would add to everyone, that when you're meeting with your realtors, start having a bit of a conversation with what is the best way to communicate. Do you like Facebook Messenger? Do you prefer text? Start having that preference management conversation with your agent, so that next time you're going for the next round of meetings, you know how they like you to communicate, and you know the channels in which they want you to communicate. So there's a couple thoughts, Todd.
No, I love that. And, I think it's really critical what you just said, right? Get personal and have those ideas of how you can come in there. And again, shine light back on some of the interviews from last year. You're talking to someone about open houses. You have open house strategies from Nicole Solari, who Dave interviewed twice last year. And so you have these great tools to add value. And, again, one of the business planning ideas, and we sent it out before, I can send it out again. I've got the one-page business plan from Building Champions, or you can use Win by Noon as a tool. So if you're planning with your agents, and I'd be doing this with your current agents, as well as the ones you're going after, because it gives you a reason to follow up. Hey, how are you doing on those goals? And so just think through how you can add value, and definitely CRM, taking notes. I mean, again, I don't want to get off tangent on that part, but you've got to be tracking who you've called, when you've called them. Someone did ask a great question. How do you deal with voicemail? I was always good at leaving voicemail. I felt that was the best. Chris Smith talks about the double dial them, hang up, dial right back. I don't know that you want to do that the first time you call a realtor, but you could. There's the people out there. Jeff Gittimer is a sales guy. He would do like this thing where you're like, hey, like the call got hung up, so someone would call you back. Again, I don't think that. I just left the voicemail, Todd Bookspan. Hey, just follow up, make sure you got the book. Give me a call, let me know either way. Click, right? I mean, you're not having to overthink it, but you can call and not leave a message. You can do the text message follow up. But I do like Dave's idea of multi-channel. Again, I don't know. I'm just not experienced with it of, can you reach out to them on Facebook? I mean, what are the other channels that you can use to get to people? So switching gears to strategy number 2. And again, it's a familiar strategy I mentioned up front, annual mortgage review. And I'm going to run you through what I call old school and new school annual mortgage review. I'm going to do it kind of quick because there's so much we've talked about recently, Dave and I, and Dave is continuing to push out great content on it. But ultimately, let me just point out a few things for those of you who are on here. Now, one thing to tell you, I kind of said it before. You've heard it before. My question is, are you doing it? And so I'm not here to tell you that you need to run back through and call all 50 of your clients last year who got loans. I'm just saying, start today, start with the first call, right? So the first call is how you differentiate yourself with your clients from everyone else. And so I say it starts from the first call, because you're going to tell your client or your potential client, hey, by the way, one of the things that differentiates me is that I don't view your loan as just one and done. I don't cash your commission check like other lenders and then never call you again. I think my job starts when we close. My goal is to proactively manage the debt or your mortgage, whichever wording you like, going forward. And so one of the things, the services I provide is an annual mortgage review. I will be watching your loan proactively throughout the year. If things happen like the Fed raises or lowers rates or loan programs change, but then I will always, if that doesn't happen, be looking once a year to see if there's some way for me to save you money. I'll be checking in with you. I would love that opportunity just to catch you up on what's going on in the market. Some type of script like that, I think you got to start there. Second is, again, we're on a mortgage coach call. You're going to do a TCA up front. You're going to show them a TCA as part of the loan process, so they're used to looking at that. Part of the reason you do that is because we'll talk through how you can use the TCA in your annual review process to save time as you get going. Dave just mentioned your CRM, right? Good notes. You got to have the CRM updated with your closing information and the TCA updated at close of escrow. Kelly Zitlow talked about that in her process when Dave did a call through last year, that she updates the TCA at the end. Wasn't something that I had done. I used to wait and redo the TCA later. It saves a ton of time if you just update the TCA at the close of escrow. Now, you may or may not be able to read this. I guess that's why we'll provide the slides. But ultimately, there was a snapshot of my CRM that my team still uses, where we just built out custom fields around the loan, occupancy, LTV, interest rate, and then we created the date and the month of the annual review so that we could do what I called my old school process. And then you can walk them through, the different mortgage planning questionnaires. So I'll show you those in just a minute. Thank you after the close. It sounds really funny. It's amazing how many loan officers I know who don't actually call their client and their realtors involved and thank them after the close. I just bought a commercial building last week, and sure enough, the commercial lender called me and said, "Congratulations, your loan is funded." And then made small talk with me about my New Year's, right? It was a great opportunity. Guy was referred to me by my brother, but I don't really know him that well. In fact, and he still said, "Hey, I'd love to get together for a cup of coffee, put a face to the name." He had tried from day one to get me to meet with him, and I just put him off because I was too busy, just like those pesky realtors do. I also got a thank you call from the realtor, of course, on the deal, who got a nice big commission check. And so, again, at that thank you call for close, you're going to remind them about your annual review process. "Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Barr, just to remind, thank you. Hey, just a reminder about the annual mortgage review process. I'm going to be proactively watching your loan throughout the year as things happen," right? So when you hear that that interest rates are an all-time low, you don't wonder, "Hey, could I save money?" Just know that I've already, prior to that, reviewed your loan to see if there was a way to save you money. But if something else changes, for some reason that you feel like maybe there's an opportunity to look at your loan down the road, just know I'm here for you. But I will be reaching out to you next January just to go over the market with you, your loan, and just to bring you up to date. Does that sound okay? And they're always going to say yes. So you're really just pre-setting them up for it now. So even if you don't have this process, you can have this process later on in the year. Then let's talk about 30 days out. So again, 30 days ahead of the month, we've got two different options. I called it old school versus new school ways to reach out. So let me give you new school first. New school was Rick Shearer, who we had on a Friday call, and Dave also wrote about his process in a LinkedIn article. And here's his email. It's in our Facebook mastermind group. You don't need to write this down because it's already in there. If you're not in the Facebook mastermind group, just look it up. Dave or I are happy to allow you to be in there. But he ultimately is telling them, "Hey, it's the anniversary of your loan." And then he talks about, he kind of scares them a little bit, right? Change in the federal funds rate. Says that rates actually may be better. His script, if you actually listen to the interview, he talks about with the changes in the Federal Reserve and within the political environment, it's worthwhile for us to connect to go over to review your mortgage. Now, what he did new school is, if you look here in the middle, you'll see this. It's book a time, click here. So what Rick is doing is he's drawing them in. So he's just sending them an email. After he sends the email, then he's telling them, "Hey, you schedule with me." And then he has them an online scheduling system. There's a bunch of different ones, again, in the mastermind group. We discuss them that you can choose. But ultimately, he's having them reach out. Then his second piece he's doing, again, Dave's multi-channel thing is he's sending out a slide broadcast. So he's using technology to send out one voicemail that goes to all their cell phone voicemails, just saying, "Hey, wanted to make sure you saw my email about scheduling for my annual mortgage review." And he's got a large percentage, and Dave can probably jump in at some point and correct me, but it's in the mid-30s% of clients who actually do the mortgage review. And so that's the new school way. That's what Wally Elderberry did when he talked about it on his interview that Dave did last week. And so that's one option for it. Now, I did the old school way. And in our Facebook group, we've got this document. I can always send it to you too. This is Lori Richardson's annual mortgage review survey that she sent out. It's funny. I actually was prepping for the call, and I found in 2007, Dave would be proud of me. I did a multi-channel approach. I actually mailed out a letter just like this, not nearly as cool as Lori's with my picture on and everything. And then I also did an online survey, right, through a Survey Monkey type thing back in the day. And I actually found I've got a folder that's all my annual reviews from 2007 that I send out to my clients. And it's got a survey that's really similar to this. It hasn't changed. But in this case, 30 days out, you would actually mail out this to all of your clients, right? Physical mail. You'd ask them to take a picture of it or use a scanner or fax to send it back to you. In the old days, I did a self-addressed stamped envelope to make it easy. In the old days, when I did a bribe, which I'll tell you about in just a minute. But ultimately, this went to all clients so that they saw something from me every year, and it's what Lori uses. And this is just a different way. It's not as much of a pull like Rick's, because you're sending to 100% of people. You're asking them to fill this out. Then what you do is a week out, if you haven't received it, then you send them an email with that online Survey Monkey survey that's got these same things. Hey, I never got your survey. Maybe it's easier to do it online. And then what Lori would do is she's got time set aside every single day to call 3 to 5 clients, and then she's calling all of those people. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, it's me, Lori Richardson. It's time for our mortgage review. So even if they haven't filled out the form, she's still calling them, touching base, and going over their loan with them. So it's just a critical process. Now, those of you who've never done it before, right, that's where, again, I'm not above a bribe. These are your clients. And so all I would be doing is saying, send them a letter. I'd recommend this route, but again, you're not wrong if you use the other route, because I don't want it to be a hurdle for you, right? I'm trying to make this easy. Here's a document of Lori's that you can just literally put your name and your logo on and send to your clients. Super easy. You've already got their addresses. I'd print this and mail it to them with a letter. My letter would just say, Dear Mr. and Mrs. Barrow, I'm really sorry, but I haven't followed up with you since you closed on your loan. I'm instituting a new annual mortgage review process. And then again, you'll copy some of the stuff out of Rick's email of why you're doing it. Please complete the survey, take a picture of it or fax it back. And then I'll call you to set up a time to do your mortgage review. And I would send that. And for me, my bribe was I'll send you a Starbucks gift card if you complete the survey. So I had a high percentage of people who did it over $10 Starbucks gift card. But I would definitely consider doing it that way. And then you're going to complete the review. Oh, the other part is I asked them in my letter to send me a copy of their most recent mortgage statement. Again, did that really to be lazy, because that way it gave me their current principal balance just in case they had done proactive principal reduction payments. And then I could use that when I was going into Mortgage Coach. Then I would back into, since I hadn't set it up before, then I was using that to set up their TCA to get it to run that way. So that would be my suggestion there. And then you're going to complete the review. I'm not going to spend a ton of time. There's an old review that I had done, for somebody. And then at the end of it, there's a couple of important things where I see people fail. Number one is alert the partner. So if you watch John Downs' interview, he got his partner's transactions as a result of doing mortgage reviews. If you watch Wally's interview, he got partners new transactions as a result of doing an annual mortgage review. So make sure you're telling this to your partners. This is one of the things you can talk about when you get the realtor to the meeting. Hey, is your loan officer doing annual mortgage reviews? And you can explain to them why you've instituted this new process. But you're going to alert them whether they need to do a review or not. You're going to cross-sell the agent when you're there. Oh, awesome, you work with Dave Savage. He's really awesome. Have you talked to him lately? And the funny part is that they're not going to talk to their realtors, because most realtors stink at this too. And then lastly, you're going to reset yourself for next year. And so all that is you're just going to make sure you've updated your notes and that you're ready to rock and roll. In Lori's case, she would tell you that even when someone didn't respond and she couldn't even get a hold of them there, she would still send out that same letter the next year. You just want to do that every single year, right? That's a commitment you're making to your clients. You have to follow through on the commitment and do it. So again, I think the biggest takeaway that I want you guys to have is, number one is, if you don't have it, start now. Start with just the script and commit to your clients going forward. A funny thing happens when you make that commitment, you say, I'm going to do it, you tend to be more accountable and actually get it done. Second thing is that make sure that you've got a system kind of outlined. So where did I put it? Oh, here we go. I just took it off my wall because I took it home to update it. But, I'm a big believer in these big Post-it notes, right? So, and I'll send this to anyone. I'm not going to put up here, but this was it's been it so long ago, it's faded now. But you can see here that I even made some other notes on it. But this has been hanging on my wall for a long time. I brought it home because I was working on some content on annual mortgage reviews over the holiday. But write out your process. What's my process going to look like? Because you've got to be ready to execute on it when it comes. And don't be afraid to go back to your past clients. Now, one other thing of advice, just like I said, don't shoot out too many books at once. Don't send this to too many clients at one time. If you've got 200 past clients, I would break it into groups of 25 at a time, maybe 50 at a time, just so you just don't get overwhelmed. Because again, the last thing you want to do is get someone to fill out the form, send it to you, and then you fail to execute because you didn't get it in. Now, one of the things that Dave told me, and I'm not going to show you my messy office, but over here on my wall, on my whiteboard, it says, Dave Savage says 250 annual mortgage reviews equals 50 closed loans in 2018. And I'm a huge believer in that, right? So my goal today was to sort of go back to something you guys have heard before, walk you through it, hopefully with a little bit more detail, and encourage you guys to do it, right? I think that these are things that you may have done in the past. These are things that you may have never done and you probably should do. But in the end, here we are. We're January 2nd, right? There's over 300 of you who took the time today to be here and learn something new, right? And you're all still here. That's the best part. And so the goal now is how do you make this actionable? And I would just tell you, look at your calendar for the week and then write out the committed times that you're going to work on this. And it's going to start with a couple of things. Number one is I would start on it right now, right? Don't wait and say, I'll start this tomorrow. I would actually take it now while it's fresh. Dave will be posting this interview back up into the YouTube channel, so watch it again if you need to. And then lastly, write out that plan, right? Execute on what it's going to be, and then don't wait till next week to start. Make sure that if you're going to send out books, you order the books on Amazon today. They'll be here in 2 days, right? Write the letters today, and then just start. And I would suggest doing both, which may seem like a lot, but unless you're closing 5 or more deals this month, you have time to do this. You have time to go out and get new partners. You have time to implement your annual mortgage review strategy. So I think that's it. I will throw a quick plug in here for my quick start. For those of you who are Win by Nooners, it finally went live New Year's Day. It's winbynoon.com/quick start. It's really designed for people who use the planner, but I've had some of you sneak in there who aren't users of it, where it just walks through sort of how I organize my week, how we use Win by Noon to do tracking, conversion rates, and other things that even if you don't use a planner, I think will be of value. So it's a free program, and you're more than welcome to jump in as a valued member of the Mortgage Coach community. All right, Dave, I'm taking a breath. What did I miss?
Well, you didn't miss anything, but I do have some thoughts to share. By the way, I am going to attend your Quick Start program myself. I know it will make me better.
I saw you register.
It will help. Yeah, no, I'm going to be checking it out. So I am sharing my screen right now, and something I have become very crystal clear on, something that I believe it with all my heart, is that of all the things that a mortgage professional can and should do, creating a habit, a system, and a process to consistently deliver annual reviews should be your number one priority. And again, there's so many reasons for this. And there's so many things that have happened over the course of my career as a mortgage professional, my leadership role within the Mortgage Coach community. But I'm going to say it, and then I want to try to make the case. Now, what you see on my screen right now is a draft. It's a LinkedIn article that I've been writing for a few days. I'm not going to post it till later today, and it could be till tomorrow, just because I want to get a few more eyes on it. And I want to make sure that I really, I make this case as compelling as possible. But, and by the way, I'm not saying that meeting with realtors isn't a number one priority. I'm just saying that if you do annual reviews really well, you're going to have more confidence when you meet with those realtors. So here's the article. I basically said, hey, there's I came up with 6 or 7 reasons. I'm just going to highlight them real quick because we only got 7 minutes. Number one is just, guys, change is happening. And while in the article I talk about over 2 years, we're going to have 10 years worth of change. That means this year alone, just this year, 2018, we're going to see more things change about the mortgage space than we saw in the previous 5 years. And remember, Rocket Mortgage isn't 5 years old. It's like 3 years old. So we're going to see a lot of change. And I love that conversation we had with Danny on Friday, where he said, I came into 2018 really clear on I need to maximize my database, and I need to do a better job of delivering personal service to both my clients and my referrals. So that's one reason to deliver annual reviews. What better way to deliver personal service and optimize your database? Reason number 2 is there is no better touch point. Like when you think of all the marketing that you can send to your past customers, what is more valuable than an annual review? Nothing. There is nothing more valuable. Reason number 3, realtors love mortgage reviews. And this comment from John Downs last week after watching Wally's video, it's evidence. Realtors like this. They respect this. They see value in this. And it will help you in your realtor meetings if you have annual reviews as part of your systems. Here's another reason. You can give countless referrals to CPAs, financial planners, attorneys. And by the way, what does that mean? If you're giving countless referrals to CPAs, financial planners, and you're doing it well, what else are you going to get? You're going to get countless referrals. So the stats that I'm working off of is if you do 250 annual mortgage reviews, you will close 50 loans from it if you do it well, and you will generate at least 75 outbound referrals. And by the way, it might be double that. It might be 100, because you're gonna get more referrals to give to others than you're gonna get loans. So huge idea. Number 5, you're gonna have a competitive advantage in your marketplace, because by the way, this isn't easy. It requires you to be smart with technology. It requires you to use your CRM. It requires you to be consistent. And by the way, if you're closing a lot of loans, like if you're closing over 50 loans, over 100 loans, it requires teamwork. So again, this is not easy, but if you pull it off, you're going to have a competitive advantage that is sustainable for years to come. Number 6, in any market, this works. Whether rates go up, whether it's a purchase market, refi market, move up market, first-time home buyer market, annual reviews will deliver a consistent, predictable level of business. And then number 7 really applies to executives and managers. If you're a branch manager, a regional leader, or a CEO of a company, if you provide the automation, the systems, and the training so that the people that you serve can execute annual reviews, what's that going to do to your production? What's that going to do to your retention? And talk about a valuable recruiting tool. Hey, we've got these systems. All of the loan officers here do these annual reviews. They close this many loans. So we're turning your data into gold. Competitive advantage. So by the way, I'd love to know if there's more reasons. And then in this article, I go and I make the case. I said, hey, I interviewed Wally, and he's doing it. And in this article, in this LinkedIn post, I put the 5-minute conversation I had with Wally a few months ago at Sales Mastery. I put the 10-minute conversation I had with him last week and the results of that. Again, I'm trying to make the case. I then took from the 1-hour meeting that we had with Rick Shear with Todd, we took a 10-minute, just 10 minutes of his annual review strategy. We put that in here. I wrote a LinkedIn article on that, put a link to that. The John Downs story, so 16-minute conversation with John Downs, put that in here, and then closed it out with Danny from a week or two ago. So anyways, this LinkedIn post is going to be posted later today, tomorrow, but I guess my closing thought is, I think as you plan to have an incredible 2018, the cornerstone to your success should be to have an annual mortgage review system, standard, habit that you execute. And if you do it, if you actually pull it off and you do it well, there won't be a single person on this call that doesn't close at least 50 loans a month. And it really just comes down to how hard you work, how consistent you are over time. My last thought, and then I'll give it to you, Todd, to close out. Even if you're a new loan officer and you don't have 500 past customers or 250 past customers, I guarantee you could adopt them, either go to your manager, say, hey, do we have some past customers? From a loan officer, doesn't work anymore, so you could adopt it from a manager. I guarantee you could find a mentor, another loan officer in your company that, is willing to say, hey, I'm not going to do this. Yeah, I'll let you do it. Figure out a way of doing it. I guarantee you, even if you're new and you don't have past customers, you could adopt past customers so that you could do annual reviews. That's my wrap, Todd, and it's been an awesome call. I'll let you wrap it up.
Well, I love it. I'm so, I don't know how to use the word proud of you guys, but I'm proud of you guys for sticking through to the end of this. I always know that it gets tempting at the end to jump off. And so I just want to close with a couple of thoughts. First off, there's a ton of great questions in the side. I love someone's takeaway, Will's, who do you know? But if you have a question that didn't get answered, Todd@winbynoon.com, or reach out to me through Facebook. I would love to connect. I'm happy to answer any questions for any of you guys. But all I'm telling you is this: why wait, right? We started off the call with Dave, what he said, which is adjust your behaviors or adjust your goals. I'm asking you guys to adjust your behaviors. I'm asking you guys to go out there today, spend a few minutes now, write out what your realtor follow-up plan is going to be to go out and acquire new realtors. I'm asking you guys to create a mortgage an annual mortgage review process we've already laid it out for you. So it's your time, right? It's the first day of 2018, right? Are you going to end up at the end of the year wishing that you would have done these things, or are you going to have crushed it? I'm counting on you guys to crush it. Dave and I are looking forward to seeing you guys on our Friday calls. I appreciate you, Dave, letting me take over for the last few Tuesdays. It's been a lot of fun to be on here, and hope you guys got some value out of this call. I really do. Appreciate you guys taking the time to start your new year with me, and I appreciate you, Dave, for jumping in today when you're supposed to be off enjoying yourself.
Yeah, no, all good. And my last reminder to everyone, because I've seen a few questions, one, to engage and interact with our private Facebook group, Mortgage Coach Productivity Mastermind. I have it up on the screen right now. Make sure you are asking questions, you're participating. We did push a poll before this call started. What is your goal for how many families you want to close? Please answer this poll question. And then remember to sign up for our YouTube channel. So go to the Mortgage Coach YouTube channel, subscribe. And then also, I did want to just shine a light on the fact that I am so convinced and so committed to this annual review strategy. I created a playlist called 2018 Annual Mortgage Review Playbook, and we will be publishing success stories and strategies. For sure, we're going to go heavy in the month of January, and then I'll figure out, hey, have we built out the playbook? Have we made the case? Do we kind of back off a little bit? But just keep an eye on this playlist. It has been posted. Hey, Todd, super grateful for you, brother. Happy 2018,
thanks, my friend.
And look forward to having a lot of fun together this year.
All right, gang. See y'all soon.
Take care, everybody.